Well, here we are. This is Michael Williams, founder of the Start Speaking Training Center, and we are here working on the T in the TAP approach. And the T stands for transforming or transformation. So let's jump right into this and let's get right down to it. You're in a process of transformation. There's two key words there that I want us to look at right now. The first one is process, and then the second one will be transformation. Now, it's very important for you to understand that you're engaged in this process, and that's why we're talking about it here, because this is one of the reasons that many people quit and don't experience or achieve the success that they desire. They don't achieve the fluency that they desire because they get out, because they're not aware of the fact that they're in a transformation process, right? That's why we're sharing it here. So let's take a look then. We talk about a process. What's a process? Well, a process is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. It's a series of actions or steps taken to achieve a particular end. What this means is that there are certain things that you're going to have to do. A series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, of actions or steps that you are going to have to do to achieve what? A particular end, to achieve a goal. And your goal is to stop stuttering and start speaking. It's to become more fluent, to become an excellent speaker, right? That's your goal. So in order to achieve that goal, there are some things that you're going to have to do, a series of actions or steps. Normally, when you have to do a series of actions or steps, you don't do them all at one time. It doesn't happen overnight, right? It's a series. And so you have to do one before the other or one after the other. Makes sense? Of course. Therefore, if you understand that you have to do a series of actions or steps, then you also understand that it's probably going to take you some time. So people who come into the program or any program and think that they're going to get it overnight or 30 days or 60 days or maybe even 90 days, when they've been perhaps stuttering for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years, and they say, they try it out and they go, this isn't going to work, this is not for me. Well, perhaps they don't understand that there's a series of actions or steps that they're going to have to take over time. And we're going to jump into this time factor. But understanding that there's certain things they're going to have to do before they do the next step, and understand that those actions and steps take time to perform and to complete. With this understanding, what it does is allows you to be more patient with yourself and with the process. So being patient with the process is critical to your success, because you can get frustrated, you can get discouraged, you can get angry, right? And you can find yourself jumping from process to process or system to system or solution to solution and never sticking with one. All right? So the first key word that we looked at in this definition, that you're involved in a process of transformation, the first key word was process, right? The second key word is transformation. So transformation means to undergo a change in form, appearance, or character. It means to undergo a change in form, appearance, or character. Change is very funny. When we do something over and over again, and rather this is something good for us or bad for us, we develop a habit, right? A pattern, a habit. And it's like a rut or a groove. It's like if you're driving and one of your tires gets in a rut or a groove, it can be difficult to get out. Even though you don't like it there, you're in there. And so sometimes when we get in patterns or habits, as painful as they may be, and this even applies to relationships, as painful as they may be, you develop what we call a level of comfort, or you get into what's called a comfort zone. And it's very difficult to get out of that comfort zone because your mind, your subconscious mind, and all of your beliefs and your emotions and your attitudes actually get comfortable there. It adjusts to it, right? In order to survive in that situation, you have to develop a degree of comfort. As painful as it may be there, you develop a degree of comfort in order to survive, in order to stay there. So people who stutter or stammer or have difficulty speaking, as much as they hate it and they don't like it, they actually develop a level of comfort to be able to deal with that and survive. Okay? Now, what happens then is when you start to work to change that or get out of that comfort zone, change, transformation, then everything that you've developed, all the mechanisms that you've developed to keep yourself there, actually, believe it or not, start to work against you. They start to say, wait a minute, this is going to be different, and we've gotten used to this right here, and I don't really want to change because I don't know what's out there. Fear. So you actually start to work to keep yourself in that painful comfort zone, which for many of you means stammering or stuttering or shyness and so forth and so on. Does that make sense? If you didn't catch all that, watch this again, because it's important to understand how this thing works and why, when you're doing your affirmations and you're starting to work through this process, why sometimes you start to hear or sense that thought that says, you're going to keep stuttering. This is never going to be over. You're going to be stuttering for the rest of your life. It's that belief system, it's that programming in your subconscious mind that's actually working to keep you in that comfort zone, in that zone which is not very comfortable, but it's keeping you there. So understanding that it's a process of change, right? It's changing your appearance, your character or form, which is the definition of transformation. Understanding that you're transforming or you're changing, then you also understand that it's going to be difficult and that it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And so if you think that it's going to happen overnight or quickly, or that it's going to be easy, then you're in for a treat. Because it's not. It's going to be very challenging and difficult, and sometimes you're going to want to quit, sometimes you are going to quit, sometimes you're going to have relapses, sometimes you're going to think this is not working, and you're going to hear all kinds of voices. I'm not saying you're crazy, I'm saying I'm crazy, but you're going to hear these voices telling you this is not working. And I just want you to understand it's a part of the transformational process. Now you see how it all comes together. It's all part of the process. You just have to keep going and work through this because you're changing. In fact, you're going to be changing your attitudes, your thoughts, your beliefs, and ultimately your behaviors. That's huge. That's huge. It takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time. Okay, I want to give you 3 principles of transformation. 3 principles of transformation. And the first principle that we're going to look at is the principle of repetition. Okay, the principle of repetition. Now these I want you to remember. Okay, I want you to remember these. Principle of repetition. And this simply means that you are going to need to repeat specific actions or steps over and over again for a sustained period of time. You're going to need to repeat specific actions or steps over and over again for a sustained period of time. What does that mean exactly? That means that as you look at this program and you figure out, okay, I'm going to do some affirmations or some verbalizations, meaning you're going to write down, I'm an excellent speaker, I'm a great speaker, I like myself, and I'm going to say it, I'm an excellent speaker, I like myself, I feel great, I can do this. Well, doing that one time is not going to be enough. As you may have read or heard, I had to do this like 50 times every day. In the morning I say, I'm an excellent speaker, I'm a great speaker, I like myself, I love myself, I feel great. And yeah, I might feel good that day, and then maybe as the day goes on I start feeling worse, and maybe I start stuttering, and I do that the next day, and I keep doing it. And some days maybe I wouldn't do it, maybe on the weekends I wouldn't do it, but I kept doing it every week, and I tried to do it every day, and I did it month in and month out. And I started to see a difference in about 6 months. I mean, I saw some differences in less time than that, but it wasn't for about 6 months that I really started to see a significant difference. So the principle of repetition says you can't just do it once. You can't just do it 50 times one day or you can't just do it one time for 50 days. You have to do it, and 50 is just a number. It could be 25, could be 100, but it needs to be more than 5 or 10, right? It needs to be up there. That number needs to be up there. And we're talking about the verbalizations or the affirmations. Whatever you're doing, you're going to have to do a significant number of it to reformat your subconscious mind, to reprogram yourself, to change your self-concept, okay? So you repeat it over and over and over again every day for a sustained period of time. 6 months, a year. There's some people that started this program back when I first launched it back in June of 2010, because you may be watching this video in 2 or 3 years. So in June of 2010, we're now in November. And they started the program, and after about 30 days, they were writing, they were frustrated, it's not working. And I knew it would work, but I knew it was going to take time. So I kept encouraging them and pushing them to keep doing it. Understand it's natural. You're probably not going to see much of a difference initially. So they kept doing it. And then, it's about 3 months. Michael, I'm really starting to see a difference. I'm really starting to experience a difference in my speech. Some people experience it much sooner, maybe in a few weeks or 30 days. Other people it takes them a few months. Now, if they keep doing it, in about 6 months, they're going to see a greater change, a more significant change. So principle of repetition means you're going to have to take certain steps and actions over and over again for a sustained period of time. Right? If you do it 1 month every day and then you stay off for 2 or 3 months and then you come back to it, it's going to take you a lot longer. Okay? The second principle, and this is the sweet one, I really like this one. It's the principle of accumulation, and I'll be putting these principles up so that you can actually see them. It's the principle of accumulation. And it's kind of like compounding interest. I'm going to use 2 examples to demonstrate this. You put a little bit in, and what you put in to the bank or to an investment actually grows to be larger than the initial amount that you put in. So it compounds over time, right? So the principle of accumulation says that the actions you take each and every day have a cumulative effect, right? The actions that you take each and every day and the impact of those actions are usually not seen initially or immediately, but they are seen gradually over time as they accumulate. So the results of practicing the actions shared in this program are not usually seen initially or immediately, but they are seen over time as they accumulate. An example is several months ago, and I'm a pretty small frame guy, started to see, and I'm in my 40s now, I started to see a little gut here. Pants started to get a little tight. And I was like, whoa, I don't like that. So I started working out, and I was in the bathroom talking to my wife, and I said, hey, do you see a difference here? She says, wow, I don't really see a difference. So I could have let that discourage me. And she's very encouraging, very supportive of everything. But she just didn't see a difference yet. And I could see a little difference. But it wasn't the kind of difference that I really wanted to see. So I kept working each and every day. And then we went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we both were just going out for a walk on the beach. And we sprayed ourselves down with some suntan lotion. And all of a sudden I looked and I could see I had a 6-pack. Bam, it was there. Well, maybe a couple of weeks ago or 30 days before that, I couldn't see anything, but I kept working until all of a sudden it was there. So what had happened was I continued to work out, and I continued to look for little small changes, to look for little small advances or impacts, and I use that to motivate me to keep going until finally, without even noticing, the results I was looking for was there. They just showed up. They accumulated. So things don't accumulate if they don't have anything to accumulate on, right? It's like a snowball. If you don't start out with a little snowball while it's rolling down the hill, it's not going to get bigger. It's not going to accumulate. If you don't put a little bit of money in the bank, it's not going to compound. Right? Because there'll be nothing for it to compound from or on. Makes sense. You have to start out where you are with what you have. You start out working, doing a little bit at a time, looking for those little successes. And what will begin to happen over time, remember the principle of repetition, you continue to do this thing over and over, those actions and steps, you're going to start to see the impact over time. And that impact is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that maybe in 3 months you see significant impact, right? But in 6 months you see a huge impact. And then in a year, wow. And then in a year and 6 months or 2 years, you almost forgot that you used to stutter. So it just keeps growing as you continue to do it. The principle of accumulation. So initially, the actions and steps that you take in this program and whatever else that you might be doing, therapy, speech therapy is awesome and works for many people. So you're doing that, and what happens is that you keep doing it and you don't initially or immediately see results, and sometimes you do, some people do. But you may not initially or immediately see results, but over time, bam, it hits you and you're like, wait a minute, I'm actually speaking fluently now. I'm feeling better. Okay? Very, very exciting principle, the principle of accumulation. So what was the first one? The principle of what? Repetition. And then the second one is the principle of accumulation. Now the third one is the principle of control. Now we've kind of talked about this principle in the foundation, right? The principle of control simply means that what you want to do is control your speaking situations. So what am I talking about? Control your speaking situations. James Earl Jones, as you may have heard me mention, said there are certain consonants that he had trouble saying. So what would he do? He'd avoid saying them. Well, some people say, well, that's avoidance. Yes, it is. You avoid saying them so that you can successfully make it through that speaking situation. And the more successful speaking situations you have, the more confident, the more calm, the more comfortable you're going to feel, and the better you're going to perform. Until you may eventually reach a point where whatever those words or those phrases were that you were struggling with, you'd be able to say it because you've now created a new self-concept. That is, you now see yourself as a successful, excellent speaker, right? And there may be certain things that you continue to struggle with, and that's okay, but they'll be so small, so minute, that you'll figure out ways to work around it. So, control your speaking situations. How? Here's some things that you can do that I've mentioned before. One, there are times when I would be in a class or I would be in a situation where I knew that someone's going to ask me to read, and I would simply share with them beforehand when I could, hey, sometimes I stutter a little bit or I pause, and so if I do, I may need to say pass, right? That right there gave me control and more confidence. I didn't feel frightened because I already told the person that, hey, I may need to pass, right? And usually I wouldn't need to pass, but when I did, I felt okay about it. The other thing that I would do is I'd refuse to read anything that I hadn't had a chance to take a look at, right? I hadn't had a chance to practice. Sometimes I would just refuse to read something. Now, that gave me, once again, a sense of confidence and control. So I would set myself up for success. I rigged the game in my favor so that whenever I spoke, I knew what I was going to say. I had either rehearsed it or I knew that I was going to be able to negotiate my way through it so that I would be able to speak successfully. So whenever you can, and this isn't always 100% possible, but make it as possible as possible. That is, rig the game in your favor as much as you possibly can, right? So if you can tell someone, hey, I may struggle a little bit here, or I may stutter sometimes, or I may pause, let them know that. If you can refuse to read something or get the material beforehand, then do that. So there are times that as a minister, when I'd be reading, I'd come across a word that I got stuck at, that I couldn't say at the time. So I would skip the word, I would replace the word with something else, I'd come back to the word, I would do anything I could in as smooth way as possible so that I wouldn't get stuck and start getting nervous and stressed and spiral downhill, right? Does that make sense? So what we want to look at then is we want to look at the fact that you're going to take control over your speaking situations so that whenever you speak, you're going to experience success. Don't say consonants or vowels or phrases that you can't say, at least not out in public. Don't say them until you feel comfortable enough that you can say them, right? Sometimes you have to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, but don't put yourself in a situation or let other people put you in a situation that you're going to feel like, oh man, I was a failure, I messed up. Oh, that was so embarrassing, I'll never do that again, right? You want to set yourself up for success, so you're like, that was great. I spoke well that time. And so as you create these successful situations, then you'll be able to create more and more. You'll be able to build on that. Okay? Now, some other things that you can do to create successful situations, to control your speaking situations, is to rehearse and to practice. So we'll be looking at that in future training sessions. But when you rehearse and you practice and you say those words that maybe you struggle with, or you figure out ways to get around it, then when you go out to speak, you have a greater sense of confidence and control because you know that you've done it, right? You've done it already. You practice, you know what you're going to say, and you're smooth, you're fluent. Control is very, very important. Don't let anyone tell you that you're avoiding, because you are, but that's what it's a part of the strategy, and it's a short-term strategy. I'm not saying avoid forever, but it's a short-term strategy until you get to the point where you can release the control a little bit, and then you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. It's a process that you're engaged in. It's going to take time, and you'll begin to release the control over time. But until then, maintain control over your speaking situations in as much as possible. It won't always be possible. It says, well, what about an interview? Rehearse the interview. Go over everything that, if you've done interviews before, you kind of know what they're going to ask you. Go over, visualize it, verbalize it, sit there, practice with someone or practice by yourself. Go through the questions, respond to questions, tell yourself you're going to do an excellent job. If they ask you, only say words that you know that you can say, and rehearse those words so that you've already done it in a mock rehearsal. And go in there feeling confident, like you're in control. Does that mean you're not going to stutter? You may, but chances are you won't stutter as much, or you won't spiral downhill as much as you would if you didn't do those things. So trust me, over time, if you keep doing those things and you have successful interview situations, whether they're live or practice, then you're going to have more successful speaking situations. Nothing beats success like success. Yes, we do learn from our failures, but we also are motivated by our what? By our successes. So we talked about a few things in this video. We talked about the fact that you're in a process of transformation, that it's going to take time. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the process. We talked about 3 principles of transformation. What was the first one? The principle of what? Repetition. Going to have to do some things over and over for a sustained period of time. The second principle was the principle of accumulation, the sweet principle. It says you may not see the impact of results initially or immediately. And that's where a lot of people drop off. I don't see any results. This is not working. You may not see them initially or immediately, but you will see them eventually. And they'll be explosive, and they'll hit you and you won't even know what hit you, right? They'll accumulate. It's like working out, just like compounding interest. And then the third principle is the principle of control. You need, in as much as possible, in as many situations as possible, take control of your speaking situations, right? When you do that, you'll build confidence, courage, you'll feel more comfortable and more calm, because you know that you're in control of that situation. Doesn't mean you won't mess up, because you will sometimes. Take that control because you can build on that success. Now, the next session that we're going to be looking at is the A in the TAP approach. The first, the T, was transforming. You are transforming. You're in a transformational process. The A is actualizing. So that's what we're going to be looking at in the next training session. May God bless you. This is Michael Williams, founder of the Start Speaking Training Center, and I'll see you there.